coffee shop was nearly empty that Tuesday afternoon. Rain hammered against the windows like tiny fists demanding entry. In the corner booth sat a figure most people wouldn't recognize without the stage makeup and leather. Ozzy Osbourne, wearing a comfortable grey cardigan over a faded burgundy Henley, nursing what had to be his fourth cup of tea. 17-year-old Marcus didn't recognize him at first. The kid had stormed in soaking wet, fists clenched, jaw tight enough to crack walnuts. He'd just been suspended from school for the third time that semester. Another fight. Another explosion he couldn't control. His mom was in the car outside, too disappointed to even look at him. Marcus slumped into the booth across from the older man, not caring, not asking. Just needing space from everyone and everything. Rough day. Ozzy's voice was softer than expected. Scratchy but genuine. Marcus shrugged, staring at the table's worn surface. You look like you want to put your fist through something. Ozzy continued, taking a slow sip of his tea. The teenager's eyes snapped up. How would you know? Ozzy smiled slightly. Because I spent 30 years wanting to put my fist through everything. Walls. Mirrors. People who looked at me wrong. My own reflection most of all. Something in Marcus shifted. Maybe it was the honesty. Maybe it was the lack of judgment. So how do you stop? The question tumbled out before he could stop it. How do I stop being angry all the time? Ozzy set down his cup carefully, and what he said next would change everything Marcus thought he knew about anger, about himself, about what it means to be strong. But first he asked, You think your anger makes you powerful, don't you? Marcus blinked. No adult had ever asked him that before. They just told him to control it, to stop it, to be better. I don't know. Maybe. I used to think the same thing. Ozzy leaned back, the cardigan hanging loose on his frame. Thought my rage was what made me special, made me interesting, made me somebody. He paused, eyes distant. Turns out it was the thing keeping me from becoming who I actually was. The rain kept falling. Somewhere, a barista dropped a spoon. But you're the Prince of Darkness, Marcus said, confusion creeping into his voice. You bite heads off bats. You're supposed to be crazy and angry and... A character, Ozzy interrupted gently. That's a character I played on stage. You know what I am when I'm not performing. He gestured to himself, to the cardigan, to the tea. A tired bloke who spent decades hurting people I loved because I couldn't figure out what was actually making me angry. Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. What do you mean? Here's what nobody tells you about anger, kid. It's not the real emotion. It's the bodyguard for the real emotion. Ozzy continued before Marcus could process that. Every single time I got angry. And I mean properly angry, the kind where you black out and wake up with bruised knuckles and no memory. It was never really about what just happened. Some interviewer would say something. Someone would bump into me at a party. Sharon would ask me a simple question, and I'd explode. So, Marcus challenged. People are annoying. They are, Ozzy agreed with a slight smile. But that wasn't why I was angry. I was angry because underneath, I was terrified. Scared I wasn't good enough. Scared people would see through me. Scared I'd lose everything. Scared I was just a poor kid from Birmingham pretending to be somebody important. The teenager shifted uncomfortably. This was hitting too close. The anger felt better than admitting I was scared, Ozzy said quietly. Anger made me feel strong. Fear made me feel weak. So I chose anger every single time. For years. Decades. And what happened? Marcus asked, his voice smaller now. Ozzy's expression darkened. I lost people, hurt people, nearly destroyed my family. Nearly killed myself more times than I can count. And not all of them were on purpose. He met Marcus's eyes directly. The anger didn't protect me from anything. It just made sure I was alone with my fear. What Ozzy revealed next about the moment everything changed would shatter every assumption Marcus had about what strength actually means. There was this one night. Ozzy began, his fingers tracing the rim of his teacup. I just had a massive row with Sharon. Screaming, throwing things, the whole disaster. I stormed out, convinced I was justified. Convinced she was the problem. He paused. I ended up sitting in my car in an empty parking lot at 3 in the morning, shaking with rage. Marcus listened, completely still. And then, for just a second, the anger drained away. Just gone. And you know what was left? Ozzy's voice cracked slightly. A terrified kid who thought his wife was going to leave him. Who thought he wasn't good enough to be a father. Who thought he'd already messed up so badly that there was no point even trying to be better. That's when I realized. The anger was easier. So much easier than feeling that. The coffee shop seemed to hold its breath. But here's the thing that saved my life, Marcus. Ozzy leaned forward. Anger is exhausting. Being scared is exhausting. But you know what takes the same amount of energy? Being honest about what you're actually feeling. I don't understand, Marcus admitted. Next time you feel that rage building, stop. Just for 3 seconds. And ask yourself, what am I actually afraid of right now? What's the real thing I'm trying to protect? Marcus frowned. I'm not afraid of anything. Ozzy smiled sadly. Then you're lying to yourself, kid. Just like I did. But what happened next in their conversation would prove whether Marcus was ready to face the truth about his anger, or whether he'd spend the next 30 years making the same mistakes Ozzy did. This is stupid, Marcus said, but his voice wavered. You don't know anything about me. You're right, I don't. Ozzy didn't argue, didn't push. Tell me about the fight today, the one that got you suspended. Marcus clenched his jaw. This guy. He was talking trash about my dad, saying he's a deadbeat for leaving us. His hands formed fists on the table. So I hit him. And how'd that feel? Good, he deserved it. And then what? Marcus faltered. And then nothing. Security pulled me off. Mom had to leave work. Now I might not graduate. His voice got quieter. And the guy's probably going to say even worse things now. So the anger solved nothing. He disrespected my dad. Your dad who left you? Ozzy asked gently. The words hung in the air like smoke. Marcus's eyes burned, but not with rage this time. You weren't angry at that kid, Ozzy said softly. You were hurt that your dad left. Scared that maybe those things people say are true. Scared that you're not enough to have made him stay. He paused. And it's so much easier to punch someone than to feel that, isn't it? A single tear rolled down Marcus's cheek. He wiped it away angrily, but more came. I hate him, Marcus whispered. I hate that he left. I hate that everyone knows. I hate that I miss him even though he's garbage. There it is, Ozzy said. That's the real thing. That's what you've been protecting with all that rage. What Ozzy told him next about handling that pain would determine whether Marcus spent his life running from it, or finally freed himself from its grip. So what do I do with this? Marcus asked, his voice breaking. How do I just stop being angry when it hurts this much? Ozzy reached across the table, not quite touching, just present. You don't stop it, kid. You feel it. All of it. The hurt, the abandonment, the fear, the sadness. You let yourself feel it instead of converting it all into rage. That sounds weak. I thought the same thing for 40 years, Ozzy replied. You know what's actually weak? Needing anger because you can't handle your real emotions. You know what's strong? Looking at your pain and saying you're here. You're real, and I'm going to survive feeling you anyway. Marcus stared at the table. And then what? I just cry about it? Feel sad all the time? No. Then you grieve it, you accept it. And then, and this is the part that saved me, you decide who you want to be anyway. Ozzy's voice got stronger. Your dad leaving. That's his failure, not yours. Those kids at school, they're just noise. The only person you have control over is you. But I don't know how to be different. Start small. Next time you feel anger rising, take 3 breaths. Ask yourself what you're actually feeling. Name it. Even if you still end up angry, at least you'll know why. Ozzy smiled slightly. I spent years in therapy learning this stuff. I'm giving it to you for free over tea. Marcus almost smiled. Almost. And here's the other thing. Find something to do with all that energy. I had music. You need something too. Something that lets you transform that intensity into something that doesn't destroy you or the people around you. But there was one more thing Ozzy needed to tell him. The hardest truth of all. And it would either break Marcus or finally set him free. There's one more thing you need to know, Ozzy said, his voice taking on a different weight. And it's going to be hard to hear. Marcus looked up, still wiping at his eyes. You're going to mess up. A lot. You're not going to catch yourself every time. You're going to lose your temper again. You're going to hurt people you care about. And when that happens, you're going to feel like a complete failure. That's your advice. That I'm going to fail. No. My advice is that failure doesn't mean you give up and decide you're just an angry person forever. Ozzy's eyes were intense now. Every single time I slipped up, and I still do sometimes, I had a choice. I could say, see, I'm just broken. I'm just angry. That's who I am. Or I could say, I messed up. I'm sorry. I'm going to try again tomorrow. He leaned in closer. The difference between me now and me 30 years ago isn't that I don't get angry anymore. It's that I don't let the anger define who I am, and I don't use it as an excuse to stop trying to be better. How long did it take you? Marcus asked. To get better at this. I'm still working on it, Ozzy admitted. But I'll tell you when I knew I'd turned a corner. When I could feel anger coming, and instead of exploding or stuffing it down, I could just say to Sharon, I'm really angry right now and I need 20 minutes to figure out why. That was the day I realized I had power over it instead of it having power over me. The rain had stopped. Neither of them had noticed. You came in here looking like you wanted to destroy the world, Ozzy observed. How do you feel now? Marcus took a shaky breath. Exhausted, sad, scared, but maybe a little less like I want to punch something. That's growth right there. Kid, what Marcus did with this conversation and the question Ozzy left him with would determine the entire trajectory of his life. Marcus sat quietly for a moment, processing everything. Outside, his mom was probably still in the car, wondering what was taking so long. Why are you telling me all this? He finally asked. You don't even know me? Ozzy smiled, and for the first time, it reached his eyes. Because 30 years ago I needed someone to tell me this and nobody did. I had to figure it out the hard way, lost a lot of time, hurt a lot of people. And if I can save one kid from going down that same road, then maybe all those mistakes meant something. He stood up, adjusting his cardigan. You've got something in you, Marcus. I can see it. All that intensity, all that passion. It doesn't have to be destructive. It can be the thing that makes you extraordinary, but only if you learn to work with it instead of letting it work you. Marcus stood too awkwardly. I don't know if I can do this. You can't do it perfectly. Nobody can. But you can do it one choice at a time, one moment at a time. Ozzy pulled out a pen and scribbled something on a napkin. That's my email. If you ever need to talk to someone who gets it, reach out. No judgment. Marcus took the napkin, staring at it like it might disappear. And Marcus, Ozzy said, hand on the door. Next time you feel that anger coming, remember this conversation. Remember that under all that rage is a kid who's hurting and deserves better than to spend his life fighting shadows. The rock legend walked out into the clearing afternoon, just another guy in a cardigan who'd seen too much and learned things the hard way. Marcus stood there for a long moment, napkin in hand, feeling something shift in his chest. Not fixed, not healed, but maybe, just maybe, starting to understand. He walked to the door, took a deep breath, and headed toward his mom's car. For the first time in months, he wasn't sure what he was going to say. He wasn't sure what would happen next. He just knew that something had changed. And sometimes that's exactly where transformation begins. The question Ozzy's words left with Marcus, and now leaves with you: what emotion have you been hiding behind anger? And are you brave enough to feel it? What do you think Marcus will do next? Will he take Ozzy's advice, or fall back into old patterns? Share your thoughts in the comments.